Hi, my name is Mandy Blackburn. I'm currently a senior at UAF this year with plans to graduate in December if all goes as planned. Some of you may have had class with me in the past as Mandy Burris, but as evidenced by the picture currently on your screen, I did in fact get married last summer and I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary. With that being said, a little bit about me. I'm originally from South Central Pennsylvania, which is also known as Amish country. I did grow up having to learn to drive on roads with Amish buggies and crazy Amish school children driving the wagons up and down the street, something that most people don't have to take into consideration when they're learning how to drive. I moved to Fairbanks in 2007 after graduating high school. When I originally came to UAF, I was a wildlife biology major with plans to do research in behavioral studies of wolves and inter-pack relations, specifically in Alaska and Montana and hopefully the Yellowstone areas were my plans. But I have gone a completely different direction and I've changed fairly recently to a criminal justice major. I currently work for the state of Alaska in that field, and so it's a completely different change. The things that I enjoy doing, things in Alaska that are unique compared to other places, are hiking, fishing, and hunting. You can see a picture of me in the top right corner there hiking the Wickersham Dome Trail last May when there was still snow on the ground. You can see a picture on the bottom left there of my husband and one of our dogs on our hunting trip last fall on the Denali Highway. Unfortunately, we didn't have any luck getting the moose that we were going for, but we did see a black bear across the river. Nothing to come home and bring in the or put in the freezer though. I also enjoy scuba diving and horseback riding. Unfortunately, I don't get to do either of those as much as I'd like now that I'm up in Alaska. But you can see a picture there in the bottom right of my husband and I on a scuba trip with the turtles in Turtle Bay off of Oahu this past summer. And I am a total bookworm. I can curl up with a book and lose myself for hours in pages of anything ranging from historical fiction to fantasy to just cut and dry history books. The two crazy puppies you see in the middle photo there are our two dogs. The little yellow lab mix there is Kimber, and the larger black husky Akita mix is Shadow. As far as what I consider important for anthropology in Alaska, specifically dealing with Alaska Native studies, is to better have an understanding not only of their ways of life and how they survived in this environment without all of the modern technology that we have now that they have access to, but also learning how to better teach them so that they can become more accustomed to modern life, but also to make sure that they don't lose their cultural identity as they begin to transition to more modern life with more access to technology and greater ability to travel farther and continue to progress. In Burkhart and Quagley, it clearly states that Native Alaskans tend to not learn the same way as typical Americans do. And so in order for us to help them and assist them in transitioning without allowing them to lose themselves and their cultural identity, we need to better understand how exactly they learn and in what ways it is easier for them to grasp concepts, whether it means learning hands-on, being outside, working in the great outdoors, or whether it just means using examples that are more closely tied to their own traditional ways of life. These are things that can help current and future generations retain the ability to proudly state that they're Alaska Native and still be able to understand what that means as much as their parents and grandparents and great grandparents did, but also allow them to not be lost in the shuffle of modern life. Another thing that anthropology does extremely well when they're documenting history and they're documenting culture is also documenting languages and linguistics. Unfortunately, a lot of the Alaska Native languages are being lost because fewer and fewer individuals out of the newer generations are learning to speak it fluently or learning more than basic phrases. Anthropologists oftentimes will go out and take audio samples of someone telling stories and somebody going out and doing things and explaining things in their own native languages. And these are extremely important in places where the languages are being lost. Not only is it important to get audio of these languages so that we have it for future reference, but also to get it written in written form somewhere that can be held onto and be accessed and referenced by future generations who want to learn and better understand the language. Unfortunately, in Alaska, that's going to take a lot of work. Not all of the Alaska Native groups speak the same language, and as Langdon clearly states, between the Athabascans and the Alutiiq and the Inupiat, there are changes and there's differences, and they are completely different from other sections of the state. Their languages are not all the same, though some can understand others to a certain degree, and their tribal basis or their cultural basis for their groups are different. Some of them are matriarchal societies, some of them are not. Some of them depend on one person, either the strongest man or the oldest individual or a council of elders to make the decisions, and those are also things that are different depending on which culture and which group of Native Alaskans you're talking about. So these are all things that are large projects for an anthropologist or a group of anthropologists to best sit down and understand. However, it's something that's extremely important to help Alaska Natives retain who they are and who they've been for generations, but also allow them to start to transition into the more modern way of life and do it in such a manner that they can still be proud and still declare themselves as Alaska Natives.